Welcome to Upstart Footy Preview for Round 8, a massive round of action with some massive games. I'm Ben Waterworth and he's back, the man himself. He put university assignments ahead of his millions of Upstart fans last week, but he's back, the Japanese assassin himself, John Takemura. Good to see you again, Foss.
Yeah, good to see you, Benjamin.
Now, Jonathan, I've got a recipe for you that you'll find better than anything on MasterChef. Get the MCG, add 22 Collingwood players, 22 Geelong players, 80,000 spectators, and a bit of Friday night light style action. That is what awaits us tonight. Collingwood versus Geelong, undefeated teams. It's going to be close, but the thing that sways me towards Collingwood is that tall forward line of Dawes and Cloke. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think Collingwood, I tend to disagree with the tall forwards. I think it's the midfield. Scott Pendlebury's in career best form, and Dane Swan, and just how much depth they have in that midfield.
What about Selwood and Bartel and Kelly and all them?
Well, they're good players, but I just think Geelong, they don't quite have as much depth as Collingwood. I think Collingwood bat a little bit deeper in that midfield, and I just can't quite see how Geelong are going to be able to kick enough goals. Cam Mooney, as good a servant as he's been, Benjamin, I think he's on his last legs.
Gone.
James Podsiadly, he struggles outside Skilled Stadium, and Tom Hawkins, he's been a bit disappointing this year. So I think Collingwood with those tall forwards, as you've mentioned, and Lee Brown, who kicked 4 goals against my Bulldogs. I was very disappointed.
How does that happen?
4 goals in 10 minutes, and yeah, I was a bit shattered about that one. And I think compared to last year's preliminary final, Collingwood have improved, and Geelong, without their best player, Gary Ablett, who had 40 disposals that night, was probably best on ground. I think Collingwood by 5 or 6 goals.
The two Melbourne teams, North Melbourne and plain old Melbourne, the D's and the Kangaroos go head-to-head at Etihad Stadium on Saturday afternoon. Roos in poor form. The D's, confidence-boosting win against the Crows last week. Don't think the D's will have too many issues with this one, J-Tac.
But they do have the loss of Jack Trengrove, 3-match suspension at the tribunal, and also Jack Grimes is out for the season, which restricts them a bit in defence, but that will be offset by Jared Rivers coming back into the side. I think Melbourne, their pressure last week was outstanding. I think they'll be too strong for the North.
Adelaide versus Gold Coast on Saturday afternoon. Very intriguing. Adelaide lost by almost 100 points last week. Gold Coast got their second win on the board against the Lions in the Q clash. Very cheesy, but it does the job, J-Tac, anyway. Going for the Crows but the last time the Suns were in Adelaide, they knocked off Port Adelaide for their first win in AFL history.
Last chance saloon for the Crows. If they don't win this one, finals, goodbye.
Gone.
Gold Coast, that was a very physical game last week. I'm not sure if they could keep that up 2 weeks in a row, so the Crows at home.
One of the most informed teams in Essendon travel up to the Gabba to play the Lions, who are winless, confidencelessness, you could say, I suppose, Jonathan. At the moment, I don't think they'll be able to get a win against the Bombers here. They are in tremendous form at the moment, the Bombers, and I think they'll continue that.
Lions have been pretty honourable apart from the loss to Gold Coast and Western Bulldogs, but I think Michael Voss's boys are in a bit of strife, and I could see them winning the spoon, so I think Essendon will win that one.
Sydney versus Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide have to travel up to the SCG, a very, very hard task for any team, but let alone Port Adelaide, who are in strife at the moment. We talked about Brisbane before being wooden spooners, but Port Adelaide are a massive chance, and Sydney will annihilate the power at the SCG, surely.
Yeah, I agree with that, Benny. They'll be wanting. They've lost 2 in a row at the SCG, and I don't think they'll lose 3. Port Adelaide, no David Roden, big loss with the knee injury, and Daniel Motlop and Robbie Gray just simply aren't in form in the forward line, so Sydney to win by 10 goals plus.
Really big game early Sunday afternoon at 1:10 p.m. between Hawthorn and St Kilda. St Kilda are below Gold Coast on the ladder at the moment. Who would have picked that at the start of the season? They've only got 1 win for the season so far. Hawthorn, a good win, a solid win against Port Adelaide last weekend, one they should have won, and I think they'll be continuing against the Saints, who, their top 8 chances are hanging by a thread, John.
Definitely, and I think St Kilda, they were pretty good on a Monday night against Carlton, probably their best performance of the season. Still wasn't enough to win. Lee Montagna suspended for that little hit to the shoulder of Ed Curnow.
Very touchy.
So he's out for a week, and I don't think St Kilda can get up in this one, and their season will just about be done come 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon.
Cooked. Are you a little nervy, J-Tac?
I'm very nervous.
You should be a little bit nervy because your Western Bulldogs, who are out of form at the moment, it has to be said, take on the Tigers. Richmond are up and about like you would not believe at the moment. The fans are right behind them, as they should be too, because they're playing excellent football. Who would have thought that the Tigers could possibly go in as favourite against the Dogs on Sunday afternoon? Going to give the Dogs one last chance, though. Some predict they'll be premiership. They'll win the premiership, I should say, at the start of the season. Going to give them one last chance against the Tigers. It'll be tough, though.
Yeah, I'll give them one last chance as well. I mean, if they don't lose this one, they're 2-4.
Yep.
They'll be 2-5.
Jeez.
So, and then big game against West Coast
Week after.
So they fall 2-6. Goodbye to the finals. Richmond, good young team, got a lot of attacking prowess. And they were very good against Fremantle last week.
Yes.
But I think the Doggies, if they want to show anything this year, they've got to win this one.
Absolutely. Round 8 concludes with the traditional rivals of Western Australia, the Derby, as they say over there, not the Derby, like us posh Melburnians say. The Derby between West Coast and Fremantle. Both teams in fantastic form at the moment, especially the Eagles, very gallant in going down to Essendon last week. The Dockers disappointed they went down to Richmond. I think they'll bounce back though. Pavlich, Mundy, Sandlands are stars. And I think their younger players like Nat Fyfe and Jay Van Burlo, guys like that, will probably lift against the Eagles side, who are a good shot to make the finals this year.
Well, for the first time for the round 8, Ben, I'm going against you. I'm tipping the West Coast Eagles.
Can't do that, John.
They are playing some very good football at the moment. I'm liking their forward press. The defences from other sides are really finding it hard to break through.
Yep.
Jack Darling, how did he slip to number 26 in the draft? I know I would have loved him at the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
We need a tall key forward.
Yep.
And West Coast haven't won a derby for Derby
Yes.
for quite some time. So I think they'll break the drought and knock off the Dockers.
It'll be a close game nonetheless. Really looking forward to that one, but really looking forward to tonight's game between Geelong and Collingwood. We're both tipping Collingwood, but you know, who knows about the Cats. But that's all we've got time for on Upstart Footy Preview for Round 8. Thanks for finally getting your priorities right, John, and doing Upstart ahead of your university assignments. Appreciate that.
No worries, mate.
And we'll be back next week to preview Round 9. Stay on the website, Upstart Magazine, for the emerging journalists.